The first thing I noticed wasn't the black sedan in my driveway or the matching luggage stacked like a fortress on my front porch. It was the smiles. 2 women sat on my steps like they owned the place, wearing identical expressions of smug satisfaction that made my stomach drop faster than my C-section scar could throb. My name is Esther, and I'd just brought my 3-day-old son home from the hospital. Micah was sleeping in his car seat, blissfully unaware that his grandmother and aunt had apparently moved in while we were gone. "Well, well," Morgan called out, rising from my porch swing with theatrical grace. "Look who finally decided to come home." I stayed in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. My body still felt like it had been hit by a truck. My breasts were leaking through 2 nursing pads, and I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time in 72 hours. This was not the homecoming I'd imagined. "Esther, dear," Morgan continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We need to talk." I got out slowly, every movement deliberate. "Morgan? Ava? What are you doing here?" Ava stood too, brushing invisible dust from her designer jeans. "We're here to help, obviously. Someone needs to take care of that baby properly." "I can take care of my own son." "Can you?" Morgan pulled a folded paper from her purse, waving it like a victory flag. "Because Rory left very specific instructions about what should happen if you proved inadequate." My blood turned to ice. "What are you talking about?" "He was worried, sweetheart, about your stability, your experience, your background." The way she said background made it sound like a disease. "So he asked us to step in if necessary." I looked at the paper in her hands, then at their luggage, then at their faces. They weren't here to help. They were here to take over. "Let me see that." Morgan held it just out of reach. "It's all very official. Rory's signature, witnessed and notarized. He wants us to ensure little Micah gets the proper Emerson upbringing he deserves." The proper... I stopped myself. Getting angry would only feed their narrative. Instead, I walked to the car and carefully lifted Micah's carrier. He stirred but didn't wake. "You see?" Ava pointed at me like I was evidence in a trial. "Look how tense she is. That baby can sense her anxiety. Babies cry when their mothers are unstable," Morgan added helpfully. "It's basic child psychology." I walked past them to my front door, fishing for my keys. "You need to leave." "Oh, honey!" Morgan's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "We're not going anywhere. This is Rory's house and that's Rory's son. We have every right to be here." I turned around slowly. "Actually, you don't." Something in my voice must have warned them, because their smiles flickered. I pulled out my phone with my free hand and opened the video app. Rory did leave instructions, very specific ones. The video started immediately. Rory's face filled the screen, wearing his dress uniform, looking directly into the camera with the serious expression I knew meant business. "Mom, Ava, if you're watching this, it means you've ignored every boundary I've set and shown up at my house uninvited." His voice was calm, but steel hard. "Let me be crystal clear. You are not welcome. You have no authority over my wife or my child. Any attempt to interfere with Esther's parenting or insert yourselves into our family will result in permanent no contact." Morgan's face went white. Ava's mouth fell open. The video continued. "Esther is an excellent mother and the only person I trust with our son. If you have a problem with that, take it up with me when I get back. Until then, stay away from my family." I let the silence stretch for a long moment before speaking. "He recorded this the day before deployment. Want me to play it again?" Morgan snatched her purse and marched toward their luggage. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is." Ava scrambled to help with the bags, shooting me looks that could have curdled milk. "You think you're so smart." "I think I'm Micah's mother." They loaded their car in furious silence. Morgan slammed her trunk hard enough to make Micah jump in his carrier, and I instinctively stepped between them and my son. As their car reversed out of my driveway, Morgan rolled down her window. Her face was twisted with rage, all pretense of concern gone. "You made this war, Esther. Don't cry when you lose." The sedan disappeared down the street, leaving me standing alone on my porch with my sleeping baby, and the sudden, terrible certainty that this was only the beginning. The knock came at 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 1 week after Morgan's threat. I was still in my pajamas, bouncing a crying Micah while trying to heat a bottle one-handed. "Mrs. Emerson?" The woman at my door wore a navy blazer and carried a clipboard. "I'm Sandra Mills from Child Protective Services. We received a report about unsafe conditions in the home." My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry, what?" "May I come in? This is just a routine welfare check." I stepped aside, acutely aware of the spit-up stain on my shirt and the dishes piled in the sink. "What kind of report?" Sandra's eyes swept my living room, taking notes. "Anonymous tip, concerns about neglect, unsanitary conditions, possible substance abuse." "Substance abuse?" My voice cracked. "I'm breastfeeding. I don't even take Tylenol." The caller mentioned erratic behavior, inability to cope with motherhood, possible postpartum depression affecting the child's safety. I knew exactly who had made that call. Sandra spent 45 minutes going through my house with a fine-tooth comb. She checked the refrigerator, the medicine cabinet, Micah's nursery. She asked about my support system, my mental health, my husband's deployment. "Everything looks fine here," she finally said. "But I do need to document this visit. If we receive additional reports—" "There will be additional reports." The words came out flat and certain. Sandra paused at the door. "Is there something you want to tell me? My mother-in-law doesn't approve of me. She's made that very clear." "I see." Sandra handed me her card. "Keep this. Document everything. If someone is filing false reports, that's a serious matter." The second visit came 3 days later. Different caseworker, same anonymous tip, this time about dangerous living conditions and maternal instability. I called my best friend Eliana that night. "They're trying to build a case," she said without preamble. Eliana was a lawyer, and she didn't waste words. "How many visits?" "2 so far." "Document everything. Times, dates, what they said, what they looked at. Start a digital journal, cloud-based, password-protected." "A journal?" "Trust me, if this escalates, you'll need proof of the pattern." I started writing that night, after Micah finally fell asleep. Day 10, post-hospital, second CPS visit. Caseworker named James Rodriguez. Same anonymous caller, claimed baby was crying excessively, and I was clearly overwhelmed. James spent 30 minutes here, said everything looked normal, asked about my support system again. Note: only people who know about Micah's crying patterns are Morgan and Ava. They were here for exactly 20 minutes last week. The harassment escalated quickly after that. My former teaching colleagues started getting calls. "Esther!" My old principal, Mrs. Davis, sounded uncomfortable. "I had the strangest conversation today. Someone claiming to be your sister-in-law called asking about your mental health history." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing, of course. But she was very persistent. Said she was concerned about your baby's welfare." I added it to my journal. Then my neighbors started getting visits. "Hey, Esther." My next-door neighbor, Tom, knocked on my door Friday evening. "Some woman came by asking questions about you. Said she was from social services." "What kind of questions?" "Whether we'd heard the baby crying at odd hours, if we'd seen you acting strange, that sort of thing. I told her you seemed like a great mom to me." "What did she look like?" "Blonde, well-dressed, driving a black sedan. Said her name was Morgan something." My hands started shaking. "Did she show you any ID?" Now that you mention it, no, she didn't. That night, I was feeding Micah in the living room when something caught my eye. A small red light blinking from the bookshelf. I put Micah in his bouncer and investigated. Hidden behind a picture frame was a tiny camera, no bigger than a USB drive. I called Eliana immediately. "Don't touch it," she said. "Take pictures of it in place, then carefully remove it. We need to document this. Someone's been in my house. When was the last time Morgan and Ava were there?" "Last week, but they never came inside." I stopped. "Wait, Ava was here Monday. She said she wanted to apologize, asked to use the bathroom." Bingo! I photographed the camera from every angle, then carefully extracted it. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it twice. The next morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No postmark, no return address. Inside were 3 photographs. Me sleeping in my bed, me nursing Micah in the nursery, me crying in the kitchen at 2 a.m. Someone had been inside my house. Multiple times. I stared at the photos, my heart hammering against my ribs. In the corner of each image was a timestamp, all taken in the past week, all taken after I'd changed the locks. I grabbed my phone and called Eliana. "They have a key," I whispered. "What?" "Morgan and Ava. They have a key to my house. We need to follow the money." Eliana spread financial documents across my kitchen table while Micah napped in his swing. "Morgan's not doing this for love. There's something bigger here." I poured coffee with shaking hands. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. The custody threats, the CPS calls, the surveillance. This is expensive, coordinated harassment. She's investing serious time and money into this campaign." So what's her return on investment?" Before I could answer, my doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole and saw a middle-aged man in a rumpled suit, looking nervous. "Mrs. Emerson, I'm Jose Lewis. I work with your mother-in-law's financial affairs." I opened the door cautiously. "Morgan sent you?" "Actually, no. She doesn't know I'm here." He glanced around nervously. "May I come in? There are things you need to know." Eliana appeared beside me. "I'm Esther's attorney. Anything you say to her, you can say in front of me." Jose nodded and stepped inside. "Morgan's been liquidating assets, significant amounts. She's also been asking questions about the Emerson family trust." "What kind of questions?" "Specifically, about guardianship provisions. What happens if something happens to Rory, who would control the trust on behalf of minor children?" My blood went cold. "How much money are we talking about?" "The trust is worth approximately $2.8 million. If Rory dies or is declared unfit, and if Morgan gains guardianship of his children, she would control those assets until they reach majority." Eliana leaned forward. "And if Esther maintains custody?" "Then she controls the trust as the surviving parent." "So, Morgan's not just trying to take my baby," I said slowly. "She's trying to take nearly $3 million. Jose nodded grimly. "There's more. She's been meeting with a family law attorney. I saw the invoices, emergency custody petitions, competency challenges, that sort of thing." "You're risking your job telling us this," Eliana observed. "Morgan's been asking me to do things that make me uncomfortable. Falsifying documents, moving money into accounts I can't trace. I won't be part of fraud." After Jose left, Eliana and I sat in stunned silence. "We need to get ahead of this," she finally said. "If Morgan's planning a custody grab, we need legal protection in place." "Like what?" "Emergency guardianship documents. If something happens to you, who do you want caring for Micah?" "You." "Good. We'll file the paperwork tomorrow. Also, I want you to call Rory. He's deployed. Communication is limited." "Try anyway. If Morgan's planning to claim he's unfit or unreachable, we need recent contact documented." That evening, I managed to reach Rory through a scratchy video call. Hey, beautiful. How's my boy? He's perfect. Rory, we need to talk about your mother. His expression darkened immediately. What's she done now? I told him everything. The CPS calls, the surveillance, the financial information from Jose. Jesus Christ. Rory ran his hands through his hair. I knew she was controlling, but there's something else. Jose mentioned you made videos before deployment, plural. Yeah, there are 2 more. One for you, one that's, well, it's insurance. What kind of insurance? The kind that ends my mother's games permanently. But Esther, you can only use it once. After that, there's no going back. Where are they? Safety deposit box at First National, box 247. The keys taped under the drawer in my desk. After we hung up, I found the key exactly where he said it would be. Small, brass, with a paper tag reading, "For when the time is right." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw your lights on late. Everything okay? Your concerned neighbor. I looked out the window. The street was empty, but I had the distinct feeling of being watched. I texted back, "Who is this?" No response. An hour later, I was checking the locks for the 3rd time when I heard a sound from the garage. A soft scraping, like someone trying to force the side door. I grabbed my phone and crept to the kitchen window. A figure in dark clothing was crouched by the garage door, working at the lock with some kind of tool. Even in the dim light, I recognized the blonde hair. Ava. I started recording video through the window, my hands trembling. She was wearing gloves and had a small bag of what looked like lock-picking tools. She got the door open and disappeared inside. I called 911. 911? What's your emergency? Someone's breaking into my garage. I can see them on my property right now. Are you in immediate danger? I don't know. I'm in the house with my baby. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line. 5 minutes later, police cars flooded my street with flashing lights. I watched from my window as 2 officers cornered Ava in my garage. She was holding a small device that looked like another camera. The police released Ava with a warning after she claimed she was checking on family property and had misplaced her key. No charges filed. The camera she was holding mysteriously disappeared from evidence. But I had my own recording. 3 days later, Ava showed up at my door, alone. No Morgan, no attitude, just red-rimmed eyes and shaking hands. "We need to talk," she said. I almost slammed the door, but something in her voice stopped me. She looked broken. "You have 30 seconds. Please. I know you recorded me in the garage. I know you could have me arrested. So I want to make a deal." I let her in, but kept my phone recording in my pocket. Micah was napping upstairs, and I wanted this conversation documented. Ava sat on my couch and immediately started crying. Not pretty tears, ugly, desperate sobs that shook her whole body. "I can't do this anymore," she choked out. "I can't keep hurting you." "Then stop. You don't understand. She'll destroy me if I don't help her." "Who will? Morgan?" Ava nodded, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "She controls everything. My apartment, my car, my credit cards. She pays for my therapy, my medications, everything. You're 34 years old. And I haven't been financially independent since college." Ava's laugh was bitter. "Do you know why I never got married?" I waited, because every time I got serious with someone, Morgan would find a way to sabotage it. She'd hire private investigators, dig up dirt, create drama. She convinced my last fiancé that I was cheating on him. "Were you?" "No. But she had photos of me with my male cousin at a family dinner, took them out of context, sent them to David with a note about my pattern of infidelity." "Why would she do that?" "Because married daughters leave. Single daughters stay dependent." Ava's voice cracked. "She's been doing it for years. isolating me, making sure I have nowhere else to go. I sat down across from her. What does this have to do with me and Micah? Everything. You represent her worst fear, losing control of Rory. She thought he'd never find someone who'd stand up to her. So she decided to destroy me. She decided to prove you were unfit so she could take the baby and control the trust money. 2 birds, 1 stone. The CPS calls were you? Ava nodded miserably. She made me practice the script. Different voices, different stories, but always anonymous. She said it was for Micah's own good. And the cameras? I installed them when I came to apologize. She said we needed evidence of your instability. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. Why are you telling me this? Because I found something. Ava reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Morgan's been planning this for months, before Micah was even born. She handed me documents, printed emails, financial records, legal consultation notes. She's been moving money around, preparing for a custody battle. Look at this one. I read the email dated 2 months before Micah's birth. Need emergency custody petition template. Client believes daughter-in-law will be unfit mother due to postpartum depression and lack of family support. She was planning to claim I had postpartum depression before I even gave birth. She had the whole thing mapped out. The CPS calls were just phase 1. Phase 2 was supposed to be a mental health crisis that would justify emergency custody. What kind of crisis? Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. She was going to have me call 911 claiming you were threatening to hurt yourself and the baby. Then she'd swoop in as the concerned grandmother. My hands started shaking. When? Next week. She's already contacted the family court about expedited hearings. I stared at the documents, my mind racing. What do you want from me? Help me get out. I'll testify against her, give you everything I have, but I need protection. She'll cut me off completely if she finds out I'm talking to you. Why should I trust you? You've been terrorizing me for weeks. Because I have this. Ava pulled out her phone and played a recording. Morgan's voice filled my living room, crystal clear. The goal isn't to help that baby, Ava. The goal is to remove him from an unsuitable environment and ensure proper Emerson oversight. If that means exaggerating Esther's instability, so be it. The trust is worth nearly $3 million. That's Micah's inheritance, and I won't let some teacher from nowhere control it. I stared at Ava. You recorded your own mother? She's not my mother. She's my warden. Ava's voice was steady now. I want out, Esther, but I need your help to do it safely. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Morgan's name flashed on the screen. Ava went white. Don't answer it. I picked up anyway. Hello, Morgan. Esther, dear. I have wonderful news. Rory's unit has gone silent. No communication for 48 hours. My heart stopped. I know you must be worried sick. Perhaps it's time we discussed temporary arrangements for Micah's care, just until we know more. I looked at Ava, who was frantically shaking her head. I'll be right over, Morgan continued. We have so much to discuss. The line went dead. Ava was already gathering her papers. I have to go. If she finds me here... Wait! I grabbed her arm. Is it true? About Rory's unit? I don't know. She didn't tell me she was calling you. Ava's hands were shaking again. But Esther, if something really happened to him, she'll move fast. Emergency custody, claiming you can't cope with being a widow. I'm not a widow. She doesn't care. She just needs the appearance of crisis. Ava left through the back door, just as Morgan's black sedan pulled into my driveway. I barely had time to hide the documents before she was knocking. Esther, sweetheart. Morgan swept in wearing all black, like she was already in mourning. I came as soon as I heard. Heard what, exactly? About the communication blackout. 48 hours with no word. She settled onto my couch without invitation. These things usually mean, well, we have to prepare for the worst. Micah started crying upstairs. The sound cut through me like a knife. I should get him. Let me. Morgan stood quickly. You look exhausted, dear. When did you last eat? I can take care of my own baby. Of course you can, under normal circumstances. Morgan's voice dripped false sympathy. But grief affects judgment. Maternal instincts can become compromised. I went upstairs and brought Micah down, holding him close. He was fussy, arching his back and refusing to settle. Oh my! Morgan watched with calculating eyes. He's quite distressed. Babies sense their mother's emotional state, you know. He's fine. Is he? He seems inconsolable. Morgan pulled out her phone. I should document this. For his pediatrician. Put that away. Esther, I'm trying to help. If Rory doesn't come home, you'll need support. Family support. You're not my family. Morgan's mask slipped for just a moment. That baby is an Emerson. Emerson blood, Emerson legacy, Emerson inheritance. You may have carried him, but he belongs to this family. Micah's crying intensified. My milk let down, soaking through my shirt. I felt exposed, vulnerable, exactly how Morgan wanted me to feel. I think you should leave. I think we should discuss arrangements. Temporary guardianship, just until we know about Rory. She pulled out a folder. Legal documents, already prepared. This is just a precaution. It gives me authority to make medical decisions, handle emergencies. You'd still be his mother, of course. I looked at the papers. Temporary guardianship agreement, with Morgan's name already filled in. You had this ready. I had my attorney prepare it when I heard about the communication blackout. I knew you'd be too distraught to think clearly. How did you hear about it? I only found out an hour ago. Morgan's smile faltered. Military Wives Network. Word travels fast. What's the name of Rory's commanding officer? What? If you're getting updates through official channels, you'd know his CO's name. Morgan stood abruptly. I don't appreciate being interrogated in my time of grief. Your grief? He's my husband. He's my son. The words exploded out of her. I raised him. I shaped him. I made him the man he is. You've known him for 3 years. I've known him for 31. Micah's crying reached a crescendo. I bounced him, trying to soothe him, but my own stress was making everything worse. Sign the papers, Esther. For Micah's sake. No. You can't handle this alone. Look at yourself. Look at him. This is what happens when mothers are overwhelmed. My phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. Don't sign anything. Help is coming. A friend. Morgan noticed me checking my phone. Who's texting you? No one. Let me see. Absolutely not. Morgan's phone rang. She answered immediately. What do you mean she's not there? Morgan's voice rose. Find her. Now. She hung up and stared at me with new suspicion. Where's Ava? How would I know? She was supposed to be home an hour ago. Her phone's going straight to voicemail. Maybe she's busy. Ava doesn't get busy without telling me. Morgan's eyes narrowed. What did you do? Nothing. You're lying. I can see it in your face. My doorbell rang. Morgan and I stared at each other. Expecting someone? She asked. I went to the door and peered through the peephole. A man in a suit stood on my porch, holding an official-looking envelope. Mrs. Emerson, I'm here to serve legal documents. Morgan went white. What documents? I opened the door. The process server handed me the envelope. Emergency custody petition, he announced. Court date is Monday at 9 a.m. Morgan snatched the papers from my hands. As she read, her face transformed from shock to rage. This is impossible. I didn't file this yet. The process server looked confused. Ma'am, according to my records, you're the petitioner. I am, but… Morgan stopped, realizing what she'd just admitted. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Thank you for serving these. I'll see you in court, Morgan. Morgan stormed out, clutching the custody papers and screaming threats about ungrateful little girls who don't know their place. I locked the door behind her and immediately called Eliana. The petition's been filed, I said. Court's Monday. Good. That gives us 3 days to prepare. How did you get ahead of her filing schedule? I didn't. Someone else did. Who? Before I could answer, my back door opened. Ava walked in, looking like she'd been crying for hours. It was me, she said. I filed the petition using Morgan's attorney login. She gave me her passwords months ago to handle scheduling. Eliana's voice came through the phone speaker. You filed a custody petition against yourself? I filed it early, before she was ready. Now she has to respond to a case that isn't prepared, with evidence she hasn't gathered yet. I stared at Ava. That's actually brilliant. I also uploaded something to her cloud storage, something she'll want to delete but can't, now that it's part of legal discovery. Ava pulled out her laptop and opened a file. Remember that recording I played you? Of Morgan talking about the trust money? Yeah. Well, I recorded more than just that conversation. She clicked play. Morgan's voice filled my kitchen, but this time she was talking to someone else, a man I didn't recognize. The goal is to create a crisis that justifies intervention, Morgan was saying. Document everything that could be construed as neglect. Crying baby, messy house, exhausted mother. Build the narrative. The man's voice responded, What about the father? Rory's deployment is perfect timing. Can't contradict our version of events from overseas. And if something happens to him, you think something will happen? I think communication blackouts are convenient. Very convenient. My blood went cold. She's lying about Rory's unit going silent. Ava nodded. I called the family readiness group. There's no communication blackout. She made it up to pressure you. How do you know all this? Because I've been documenting everything for months. Every conversation, every plan, every lie. I was supposed to be her accomplice, but I was actually gathering evidence. She opened another folder on her laptop. Dozens of audio files, photos, email screenshots. This is Morgan admitting she falsified the CPS reports. This is her paying someone to install surveillance equipment. This is her meeting with a private investigator about discrediting the daughter-in-law. Eliana's voice crackled through the phone. Ava, are you willing to testify to all of this? Yes, but there's something else, something bigger. Ava pulled up a bank statement. Morgan's been embezzling from the family trust for years. Small amounts, but consistent. She's been using Rory's deployment to move larger sums. How much? Nearly $400,000. She's been gambling it on high-risk investments, trying to double the money before anyone notices. And if she loses it, she blames it on market volatility and covers the loss by gaining control of Micah's portion of the trust. I sat down hard. So this was never about Micah's welfare. It was about covering up financial fraud. My phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer, Ava warned. She's been using burner phones to make threatening calls. I answered anyway and put it on speaker. You think you're clever? Morgan's voice hissed through the line. But you have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I think I do. That little recording means nothing. Ava's mentally unstable. Everyone knows it. Her testimony won't hold up. What about the financial records? Silence. Or the fake CPS reports? Or the illegal surveillance? You can't prove any of that. Actually, we can. I looked at Ava, who nodded encouragingly. We have everything, Morgan. Every lie, every scheme, every crime. You're making a mistake. I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, connections, money. Had resources. Past tense. What do you mean? Eliana's voice cut in from the phone. I mean the FBI Financial Crimes Unit received an anonymous tip about trust fund embezzlement this morning. They're very interested in your investment activities. The line went quiet for a long moment. This isn't over, Morgan finally said. Yes, it is. I hung up and looked at Ava. The FBI? Eliana's idea. Financial fraud involving military families gets federal attention fast. My laptop chimed with a notification. New email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, Thought you should see this. I opened it. Inside was a link to a Facebook group called Military Wives Support Network. The post at the top had been shared hundreds of times. Audio. Mother-in-law admits to filing false CPS reports and planning custody fraud. Below, it was the recording of Morgan discussing her plans, along with screenshots of the fake documents and a detailed timeline of her harassment campaign. It's gone viral, Ava whispered. Look at the comments. Hundreds of military wives were sharing their own stories of toxic in-laws, offering support, expressing outrage. Morgan's full name was in the comments, along with her business information. My phone started ringing. Local news stations, wanting interviews. Esther, Ava said quietly. There's one more thing. Something I haven't told you. What? Rory's not just alive. He's coming home early. Medical discharge for a back injury. His plane lands tomorrow. I stared at her. How do you know that? Because I've been in contact with him for weeks. He's the one who told me to document everything. He's the one who planned this whole counterattack. Rory knew? He knew his mother would try something like this. He just didn't know when. My phone buzzed with a text from Rory's number. Wheels down at 800. Can't wait to meet our son and deal with my mother. Rory's plane was 2 hours late, but I didn't care. I stood at the arrival gate with Micah in my arms, watching every soldier who walked through those doors. When I finally saw him, limping slightly and carrying a duffel bag, I started crying before he even reached us. Hey, beautiful. He dropped his bag and wrapped us both in his arms. God, I missed you. You're really here. I'm really here. He pulled back to look at Micah, who was staring at his father with wide, curious eyes. And this is my son. Rory, there's so much I need to tell you. I know. Ava filled me in on everything. His jaw tightened. We'll deal with my mother, but first, let me hold my boy. The drive home was surreal. Rory held Micah in the back seat, talking to him in a soft voice while I updated him on the latest developments. The FBI contacted Morgan yesterday, I said. She's hired a criminal defense attorney. Good. Maybe now she'll understand this isn't a game. The custody hearing's been postponed indefinitely. Her lawyer withdrew from the case. Smart move. No attorney wants to represent someone under federal investigation. We pulled into our driveway, and I noticed Rory tense up. What is it? Black sedan across the street. She's watching. I looked in my rearview mirror. Morgan sat in her car, staring at us with undisguised hatred. Should we call the police? Not yet. Let her make the first move. We went inside, and Rory immediately went to his desk. He pulled out a key, different from the one I'd found, and unlocked a drawer I'd never seen opened. The safety deposit box key was a decoy, he explained. The real videos are here. He pulled out a small hard drive and plugged it into his laptop. This is the nuclear option, Esther. Once we use this, there's no relationship left to salvage. Are you sure you want to go that far? After everything she's done? Yes. Rory opened a video file. His face appeared on screen, but this wasn't the uniform video from before. This was casual clothes, our living room, recorded just days before deployment. If you're watching this, it means my mother has crossed every line I set, video Rory said. What you're about to hear is a conversation I recorded without her knowledge. It's illegal in some states, but admissible in family court. The video cut to audio of a phone conversation. Morgan's voice was crystal clear. Rory, that girl is not suitable for our family. She's common, she has no connections, and she'll dilute the bloodline. Mom, I love her. Love fades. Breeding doesn't. If you insist on this marriage, fine, but I won't let her raise Emerson children with her values. What's that supposed to mean? It means when you have children, they'll need proper guidance from family who understands their heritage. You mean you? I mean people who aren't first-generation immigrants with questionable backgrounds. I flinched. My parents had immigrated from Mexico when I was 5. The recording continued. If something happens to you, Rory, I'll make sure those children are raised properly, with or without her consent. That sounds like a threat, Mum. It's a promise. Rory paused the video. There's more. Hours of it. Her plans, her prejudices, her threats, everything. Before I could respond, our doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Morgan standing on our porch, no longer hiding in her car. She knows you're back, I told Rory. Good. Time to end this. Rory opened the door, still holding Micah. Morgan's face lit up when she saw her son. Rory, thank God you're safe. I was so worried when they said... Who said what, Mom? Because there was no communication blackout. Morgan's smile faltered. The Wives Network said... You lied. About the blackout, about the emergency, about everything. I was protecting your family. From what? From her! Morgan pointed at me. She's not fit to be a mother. The CPS reports, the instability, the reports you filed. The instability you created. Morgan's face went white. Who told you that? Ava. She's been recording you for months. Ava's sick. She needs help. You can't trust... I can trust the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. They're very interested in your investment activities. Morgan stepped back like she'd been slapped. You don't understand. I was trying to grow the trust fund for Micah's future. You were covering up embezzlement with custody fraud. That's not... I would never... Rory shifted Micah to one arm and pulled out his phone. Would you like to hear the recording of you admitting you planned to fake a mental health crisis to take custody? You can't have that. Or the one where you call my wife common and talk about diluting the bloodline. Morgan's composure finally cracked. She is common. She's nobody. And that baby deserves better than... Stop. Rory's voice cut like ice. You're talking about my wife and my son. I'm talking about preserving this family's legacy. No, you're talking about control. And it's over. Rory stepped closer to his mother. You will not contact us. You will not drive by our house. You will not call our friends, our neighbors, or any government agencies. You will not attempt to see Micah until he's old enough to decide for himself. You can't keep me from my grandson. Watch me. Morgan's face twisted with rage. I made you who you are. I sacrificed everything for you. And this is how you repay me? You didn't sacrifice anything, Mom. You invested. And now you're upset because your investment isn't paying the returns you expected. I'll fight this. I have lawyers, resources. You have criminal charges pending and a viral video showing exactly who you are. Morgan looked between us, realizing she'd lost. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Rory stepped back and closed the door. Through the window, we watched Morgan stand on our porch for a full minute before walking back to her car. Think she'll give up? I asked. No, but it doesn't matter. We're ready for whatever comes next. That night, I found a small box on our doorstep. Inside was one of Micah's baby blankets, one that had been in his nursery. The message was clear. She could still get to us. I held the blanket in shaking hands while Rory called 911. The fabric still smelled like Micah's baby lotion. She was in his room, I whispered. She was in our house again. Not anymore, Rory said grimly. This time we have her. The police arrived within minutes, followed by Detective Martinez, who'd been handling our harassment case. She photographed the blanket, the box, everything. This constitutes breaking and entering, stalking, and violation of the restraining order, she said. We can arrest her tonight. Do it. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Ava's number. They got her, Ava said, her voice shaky with relief. She's in custody. But Esther, she's not going quietly. What do you mean? She's claiming the blanket was planted, that you're framing her to cover up your own instability. Of course she is, but here's the thing. I have security footage from her building. She left at 11 p.m. with a bag, came back at 1 a.m. without it. The timeline matches perfectly with when you found the box. You've been watching her? I moved out last week, but I still have access to the building cameras. I've been documenting everything, just in case. The next morning, Morgan's arrest made the local news. The reporter stood outside the courthouse, explaining how a prominent local businesswoman had been charged with stalking and harassment of her military daughter-in-law. My phone started ringing immediately. Reporters, talk show producers, podcast hosts. Everyone wanted the story. We're not talking to anyone, Rory decided. Let the legal system handle this. But the story was already out there. The viral video had grown into a movement. Military wives were sharing their own stories of toxic in-laws, creating support networks, demanding better protection from harassment. 3 days later, Detective Martinez called with an update. Morgan's attorney is pushing for a plea deal. She wants to avoid trial. What kind of deal? Guilty plea to stalking and harassment, 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, permanent restraining order. She'd also have to pay restitution for your legal fees and security upgrades. And the federal charges? Still pending. The FBI found evidence of significant embezzlement. That's a separate case. I looked at Rory, who was feeding Micah a bottle. What do you think? I think I want this over, for all of us. We accepted the plea deal. Morgan pled guilty in a closed courtroom, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. She didn't look at us once during the proceedings. Ava testified at the federal hearing 2 weeks later. She wore a simple blue dress and spoke clearly about years of financial manipulation and emotional abuse. Morgan's defense attorney tried to paint her as an unreliable witness, but the evidence was overwhelming. Morgan received 3 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud. The day after sentencing, Ava came to our house for dinner. She looked different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. I got a job, she announced over dessert. Teaching position at a private school in Oregon. I start next month. That's wonderful, I said. Are you nervous about being so far away? Terrified, but also excited. She smiled at Micah, who was babbling in his high chair. I've never lived anywhere she couldn't just show up. What about when she gets out? Ava's expression hardened. I'll deal with that when it happens, but for now, I'm free. We held Micah's naming ceremony the following weekend. Just close friends, Eliana, Ava, before she left for Oregon, and Rory's military buddies. No extended family drama, no hidden agendas, just people who genuinely cared about us. As I watched Rory hold our son while our friends toasted to new beginnings, I realized something had shifted inside me. The constant vigilance, the need to document every interaction, the hyper-awareness of threats. It was all still there, but quieter now. You did it, Eliana said, joining me on the back porch. You protected your family. We all did it. You, Ava, Rory. I couldn't have done this alone. But you were willing to. That's what mattered. I looked through the window at Micah, now 6 months old, and laughing at something Rory was doing. Sometimes I wonder what I became in all this. Whether fighting monsters made me into one. You became a mother. That's what mothers do. They protect their children, whatever the cost. Even if it changes them. Especially then. That night, after everyone left, I sat down at my computer and opened the blog I'd been keeping throughout this ordeal. I'd been documenting everything for legal purposes, but now it felt like something more. A record. A warning. A guide for other women who might face similar battles. I typed my final entry. It's over. Morgan is in prison, Ava is free, and my family is safe. The cost was higher than I expected, not just financially, but emotionally. I learned things about myself I'm not sure I wanted to know. I learned I could be calculating, ruthless, even cruel when protecting what matters most. But I also learned that sometimes the only way to stop a cycle of abuse is to fight back with everything you have. Sometimes being the bigger person just means being a bigger target. To anyone reading this who's facing something similar, document everything, trust your instincts, and don't fight alone. Find your allies, build your evidence, and remember that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep toxic people warm. Micah is sleeping peacefully in his crib. Rory is reading beside me. The house is quiet and secure. No one is watching from the street. No one is planning our destruction. For the first time in months, I'm closing the curtains not to hide, but because we deserve privacy. Because this is our home, our family, our life. And no one is ever getting in again. I hit publish and closed the laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight we were safe. Tonight we had won.